Rounding the brick wall, a striking figure in the shadows instantly halts Nell's steps. Soaked by the torrential downpour, the ragged, stubble-jawed stranger rests against the cold asphalt. Resting on dissolved paper scraps without any protection from the storm, his plight sends a customary ache of pity straight through her chest. The frigid, gloomy dawn feels utterly wretched, chilling her deeply from the inside out. Hugging her battered art folder tightly, she is already 15 minutes behind schedule for her Morrison & Associates appointment. Missing this chance is impossible. Being 3 weeks behind on housing payments, alongside aggressive landlord messages, means she must absolutely rush. Yet, an unexplainable aura around him forces stillness. While ordinary beggars shrink away to remain unseen, this mysterious wanderer commands the grim pathway like a king. Despite resting upon soaked concrete amidst torrential showers, his bearing radiates an undeniable aristocratic majesty. Broad shoulders and an upright back project immense nobility, entirely contradicting his destitute state. Locking gazes as he raises his head simply steals the oxygen from her lungs. Those penetrating eyes feel piercingly alert rather than dangerous. They hold fierce arrogance, uncrushed by tragedy, burning in a mesmerizing, otherworldly golden hue, unlike anything she has witnessed. The distraction causes a misstep. Tripping over jagged stone, gravity violently steals her footing. Documents launch from her grip while her handbag spills its treasures entirely across the slick street. Her billfold, her meticulously packaged midday meal, and her extremely outdated cassette player hit the ground. Countless writing utensils roll away. "Oh, perfect," she mutters, desperately crawling to salvage her items before total destruction. Suddenly, the enigmatic stranger's fingers gracefully reach out beside her own. Anticipating a swift theft of her cash, she stiffens, though she could hardly fault his desperation. Rather surprisingly, the man meticulously retrieves her fallen items, extending them with unexpected tenderness. "I assume you dropped these," his rich baritone rumbles. Demanding zero compensation, he smoothly returns to his previous brickside repose with baffling serenity. "I appreciate it," she breathes, retrieving the pile using visibly quivering fingers. Her clutched cash signifies transit fare back, acting as her singular meal safety net should her meeting fail spectacularly. Regardless, brushing aside all rational hesitation, she forces the wrinkled currency into his grasp. "Take this," she whispers. "Buy a hot meal." His subsequent stare squeezes her heart with mysterious intensity, viewing her basic decency as an absolute miracle. "My gratitude," he responds softly. Acknowledging him, she prepares to sprint toward her final opportunity for escaping crippling poverty. Instantly, a sinister crimson pool expanding across the damp stone beneath him halts her retreat. Pure gore. Freezing in place, her pulse pounds upon closer inspection. Why hadn't she noticed? Despite his stoic facade, the stormy darkness can no longer conceal his grave condition. Parted outerwear exposes a massive, slick, crimson spot oozing heavily from his shredded torso garments. "You are injured," she gasps. He peers toward his waist, seemingly shocked by the hemorrhage. "Minor damage," he mutters. His ashen complexion and unnatural azure lips scream severe trauma, ignoring the chill. "That looks incredibly serious," she insists stubbornly. "Medical attention is mandatory." Chewing her lower lip, she realizes professional healing is clearly beyond his financial grasp. His poverty is undeniable. She agonizes over her pending employment meeting, unpaid leases, and vanishing hopes. Glancing back toward the captivating stranger who aided her, recognizing he was silently bleeding out, completely alone. "Follow me," she offers, reaching out. "I will stitch and dress that properly." An unknown emotion shifts his features. However, he stays rigidly motionless, simply observing her extended palm. Heavy stillness lingers painfully. "I am Nell Days, incidentally," she offers a warm, coaxing expression. "Who are you?" Halting his initial reply, those striking golden irises finally lock onto hers, revealing absolute, devastating vulnerability. "I have no idea," he whispers. His confession lingers in the pouring rain separating them. Chapter 1. "What do you mean you forgot?" Nell echoes, her brow furrowing with bewilderment. How could a person just lose their identity? Or all recent memories? Questions burn on her tongue, yet that vulnerable, shattered look in his eyes silences her. Blood loss and a violent injury could easily trigger profound shock. Regardless, grilling a bleeding guy during a downpour wouldn't solve anything right now. "Don't worry," she murmurs softly. "We will sort it out eventually." His gaze drops to her outstretched palm, hesitating heavily before his fingers finally grasp hers. An icy chill replaces the previous heat radiating from his skin, and getting to his feet clearly requires massive physical exertion. A drugstore is super close by. She guides him away from the shadows. "We must buy the right stuff to treat those cuts." Inside, an older, warm-eyed clerk instantly rushes over to assist. "Severe laceration?" the lady inquires while grabbing boxes off the display. "Grab some disinfectant, sterile pads, surgical adhesive, and moisture-blocking plasters." Moisture is your enemy after sanitizing. Nasty gashes get infected incredibly quickly. Staring at the mounting first aid haul, Nell nods. "Any specific warning signs?" "Expanding inflammation, crimson lines, or foul odors," the woman lists, calculating their purchase. "Your total is $43. Panic twists Nell's gut as she checks her nearly empty purse. $18. Nothing more. She stammers, face burning with deep humiliation. "My apologies. I am short on cash." The clerk's face shifts into sheer pity. "Got any household alternatives handy?" "Plenty of peroxide," Nell blurts out instantly. "Got plenty of alcohol, too." "That works. Just buy the pads for $12 then." A massive wave of gratitude washes over her while passing the cash across the counter. Outdoors, her anonymous companion slumps against the brick exterior, looking completely ashen. "My place is just down the street," she offers, gripping her tiny purchase. "The rest of the medical gear is at home. Plus, it is cozy and sheltered." His piercing golden gaze locks onto hers, projecting a fierce, silent debate warring within his mind. "Relax," she assures him. "You need saving, and stepping up is just basic human decency." Her conviction breaks his resistance. A single, distinct bow of his head signals his quiet thanks. Chapter 2. Nell lives in a rundown 3-story complex boasting chipped walls and an entrance gate notorious for jamming during rainstorms. Scaling the cramped steps toward level 2, the overwhelming presence of the enigma trailing her becomes impossible to ignore. His eerily silent footsteps and the predatory way those glowing golden irises scan every single shadow. Reaching the corridor, they bump into Mr. Hoffman from apartment 1B, loitering around in fuzzy footwear and sleepwear. "Greetings, sweetheart," the senior citizen mumbles, squinting heavily. "I stepped out for some creamer, except my house ring completely vanished on me." Dread pools in Nell's stomach. He had wandered off lost 3 times already since Monday. "Sir, you lack proper clothing. Let us escort you homeward." The old man glances down, utterly baffled by his attire. Closing the distance, her nameless guest softly supports the neighbor's elbow, smoothly steering the confused senior toward his unit. "Weird," the mystery man breathes, his low frequency meant solely for her ears. "Explain?" she mutters in response. "The scent. You don't catch that?" His sentence fades as he dismissively waves a hand. "Forget it." Sniffing the air, Nell catches 0 anomalies. Only the standard, stale scent of rotting architecture. After securing the confused tenant back indoors, she navigates her tall shadow toward her personal threshold. Trembling fingers struggle with the lock, while the sheer insanity of inviting him inside crashes down on her shoulders. Her tiny flat immediately shrinks into a claustrophobic box. His massive aura instantly devours the tiny lounge area. A towering, rugged giant sporting grime-stained hands and a scruffy jawline, potentially concealing lethal wounds. Could he be a killer? Was playing savior a fatal mistake? Picking up on her spiking anxiety, the mysterious beast pauses. Halting at the entryway to respect her space, he displays empty palms. "Say the word and I leave," he offers in a soothing, velvety baritone. The fact that he offered her an escape hatch only stirred her conscience. A genuine threat wouldn't hand her a way out, right? Absolutely not, she insists, giving a resolute shake of her head. You're bleeding, and bad weather is brewing. She swings the entrance open further, beckoning him indoors. Her place is cramped, yet spotless, featuring a lounge that serves as an office, a tiny cooking area, and sleeping quarters that barely fit a single mattress. Before I examine that injury, though, she remarks, eyeing his muddy, drenched garments dripping onto her timber flooring, you must wash off first. Wrapping you up in this state practically guarantees a nasty infection. She ducks into her sleeping quarters, emerging moments later with a pile of masculine apparel. Denim pants, a knitted pullover, fresh briefs, and cotton foot coverings. My former partner owned these, she clarifies. Abandoned them after shacking up with a coworker. Lucky you, I suppose. The mysterious guest accepts the garments, dipping his chin in quiet appreciation. The washroom is down that way, she directs him. You will find hair products, body wash, and fresh linens. There is even a brand new blade and some lather if you feel like grooming. As the pipes sing, Nell tunes into the cascading droplets, desperately fighting off thoughts of the unclothed mystery man occupying her tub. She attempts to phone Morrison and Associates about postponing her meeting, yet the front desk clerk cuts the line mid-sentence. So much for scoring that career prospect. 20 minutes pass before the washroom latch clicks open. As Nell pivots, the sight literally steals the oxygen from her lungs. Scrubbed clean and barefaced, the man is devastatingly handsome. A kind of mesmerizing beauty that leaves her utterly winded. Why had she not realized his bone structure rivaled a classical masterpiece? She lingers on his face a second too far, a flush igniting her throat. Okay then, she murmurs, her tone slightly raspy. Time to treat that injury. The gash is far uglier than anticipated. A severe, precise piercing bordered by dark, mottled flesh. Looks exactly like a knife plunge, she notes, maintaining a calm demeanor while dabbing on some antiseptic liquid. How long ago did you get this? She queries, absorbing the crimson seepage with a rag. A few hours back, he answers, his tone strained from suppressing the agony. A few locals took offense when I sought shelter from the downpour in their territory. One pulled a blade. The situation spiraled fast. Nell freezes. You took a shiv just for sitting somewhere? If turf is your only possession, he murmurs, holding her gaze, you protect it fiercely, regardless of its size. The injury is perfectly sanitized at last. She gently smears on some healing salve, taking her time. A minor wince escapes him. A medical professional really needs to look at this. This is sufficient, he states plainly. Beyond the glass, the tempest intensifies. His eyes shift from the pain back to her face. Don't leave, she commands, pressing the final medical adhesive into place. Wait out the worst of the weather, anyway. He scrutinizes her, his golden gaze completely enigmatic, before dipping his chin. Only until the sky's clear, he concedes. Right on cue, a booming rumble shakes the ceiling like a locomotive, causing the bulbs to strobe. Chapter 3. Later that evening, Nell stares at the ceiling, utterly sleepless as the hurricane batters the exterior. Each groan of the aging structure amplifies her acute consciousness of the unknown man resting on her sofa. Granted, he possesses a divine, tragic beauty, yet that hardly guarantees he wouldn't choke her out before dawn. Exhaustion evidently claims her at some point, plunging her into a vision where she tiptoes toward the washroom at the witching hour. Yet in place of her mysterious guest, a gigantic canine beast sprawls over her cushions. The gargantuan predator slumbers tranquilly, its heavy snout propped up on the furniture's edge. Resting there, it radiates an undeniable royalty, a feral presence that somehow feels intimately recognizable. A detached part of her brain questions why discovering a mammoth beast in her lounge does not spark terror. Such a bizarre hallucination. Come daybreak, the tempest continues to punish the glass as Nell finally steps out of her sleeping quarters. Morning, her visitor greets, spinning around to hand her a vapor-plumed cup. Pardon the intrusion, but I brewed some Java. Oh, that is wonderful, she replies, taking the brew with genuine thanks. You really shouldn't have troubled yourself. She observes his features illuminated by the early sun. Without the stubble and exhaustion, his handsomeness eclipses yesterday's impression. He carries his frame with an undeniable nobility, despite wearing her previous lover's hand-me-downs. Need a bite to eat? She questions. I can whip up a morning meal. While navigating the galley to fetch meat and eggs, she catches him perusing her modest literary display. The library is hardly impressive, consisting primarily of used, softcover novels. The Brothers Karamazov, he murmurs, grazing the worn cover. Nell freezes, clutching her spatula. Is it familiar? He scrunches his forehead, searching his fragmented memory. Maybe. I know I like the story. She watches him closely. Wait, so your memories aren't totally gone? A shadow crosses his face. Hardly. My life started 2 months ago, shivering in some random alleyway, he mutters. No clue how I ended up there. Nell softens her voice. Could it be a concussion? I didn't have a single scratch, he answers flatly. Just a void. His gaze drops to the novel again. This is the only piece of my past that sparks anything. There was a character I felt drawn to, Dmitri. Wild, deeply flawed, yet somehow savable. Nell feels a sharp pang of sympathy. Let's call you that then, she blurts out. At least until your true identity comes back. Dmitri. He tastes the word. Yes, I can accept that. A giggle escapes her at his stiff tone. Instantly he freezes, whipping his head around as if catching a hidden frequency. Hey, what is it? She asks, killing the stove. Silence is his only reply. He stands, stalking to the middle of her kitchen while deeply inhaling the surrounding drafts. Are you not smelling that? He demands. She takes a big whiff. The breakfast? No, he snaps. This is bad. Without waiting, he dashes out of the apartment. What on earth? She grumbles, chasing his shadow into the corridor. From the landing, she watches him aggressively wrestling with a knob down on the first level. You can't get in there, she yells. That's the utility closet. Paying no attention, he rams his body into the wood. Hey, quit it, she cries, scrambling down the steps. You'd need a key. Wood splinters deafeningly as the barrier shatters, swallowing him into the shadows. She gapes at the ruined entrance. Are you insane? She shrieks, rushing after him into the subterranean gloom. The owner is going to kill me. The cellar is pitch black and claustrophobic, choked by decades-old furnace pipes. Her mysterious guest crouches by the main heater, glaring at the machinery. I mean it. Get out of there, she insists, stepping downward. Don't move, he barks. We have a rupture. The air is toxic. Completely baffled, she allows him to haul her upward. A leak of what? Carbon monoxide, he answers grimly, dragging her toward the front doors. We have to dial 911. My cell is upstairs. Absolutely not. We aren't going back. He hauls her out into the tempest, a downpour instantly drenching them both. A coffee shop sits 50 yards off. He heads there with terrifying certainty. It is an emergency, he barks at the cashier. Give me your landline. 20 minutes pass before she stands shivering outside, watching rescue crews swarm her apartment complex. The captain reports a massive furnace failure, explaining that toxic fumes had been flooding the floors for weeks. It is an absolute miracle you caught this, a paramedic murmurs to him. That stuff is completely odorless. He opens his mouth to argue, but then her property manager, Mr. K, storms over. Explain this circus, he barks, eyeing her. Is this your doing? It was a toxic rupture, she shoots back. We almost died, Key scoffs. The ducts just need adjusting, before realizing his slip-up. I mean, everyone is being overly dramatic. Her companion steps up. You were aware. The man's tone is pure ice. You realized the exhaust was failing and actively ignored it. The manager shrinks away. Listen here, buddy. The law demands you provide habitable environments. He cuts in flawlessly. Failing to install monitors and service those vents breaches multiple safety statutes. Lives were on the line. Old man Hoffman has been acting delirious. She gasps, everything finally making sense. That explains his dementia. He was breathing in poison. Kay loses all color. Hey, let us not blow this out of proportion. My lawyers will be contacting you, he states deadpan, projecting a lethal aura that gives her goosebumps. Reckless endangerment and statutory negligence. Hold on, Kay begs, sweating profusely. Let me compensate you. 90 days of free housing? Do not insult me, he snarls, golden irises flashing with fury. Your sheer carelessness put everyone at risk. Now gently rests a hand on his forearm, murmuring, Dmitri, may I have a quick word? His body hums with barely contained fury. Yet he yields when she guides him away from the crowd. Listen, she murmurs, keeping her tone hushed. I admire your intent, but legal battles cost money none of us have, especially you. He parts his lips to argue, only to snap his jaw shut as the reality of his own penniless state seemingly crashes over him. Justice still matters, he finally bites out. We cannot let him walk away scot-free. He isn't walking away, she insists, holding her ground. We're all getting 3 months of rent entirely waived. People desperately need that lifeline. You kept us all alive. Let that be enough. She observes the internal war raging behind his eyes. Slowly, the harsh line of his shoulders drops. The commanding aura bleeding off him dissipates, leaving behind a strangely fragile man. Just what kind of secrets are you hiding, Dmitri? She muses, studying his distant gaze as he watches the tempest outside. Chapter 4. Hours later, with the emergency crews finally gone, the pair ascend the staircase to her place, wrapped in a comfortable quiet. I need to look at that injury, she announces upon entering. He silently complies, taking a seat and pulling up the hem of his loaned knit top. Dropping to her knees, she gently works the adhesive dressing loose. Suddenly, her breath hitches. How can this be? She breathes out. The vicious gash from yesterday has completely vanished, leaving behind nothing but flawless flesh. There is absolutely zero trace of trauma. This makes no sense, he mutters, gazing at his own abdomen with mirror image shock. Tracing a tentative fingertip across the healed canvas, she shivers. I was so terrified it would fester, or that I'd have to sew you up, she rambles absently. Perhaps the cut was merely superficial, he offers, though he clearly doubts his own words. Sure, she replies softly. Bathed in the warm glow of the lamp, their eyes lock as they share a quiet, baffled exchange. Yet the mystery quickly melts away, replaced by a heavy, charged stillness that makes her hyper-conscious of their intimate proximity. She remains planted on the floor, her palm practically searing against the heat of his naked torso. A gasp escapes her lips as he raises an arm, his knuckles brushing the air beside her jawline, before the spell suddenly shatters. I need to leave. Jerking the fabric back over his stomach, he shoots up from the cushions. Leave? She echoes faintly. I am fully recovered, he explains. Your hospitality has been incredible, but it is time I got out of your hair. A bizarre desperation claws at her throat, begging her to invent any excuse to keep him here. Yet logic dictates otherwise. The danger has passed, his body is whole, and she lacks any valid justification to hold him back. Right, absolutely, she manages, pasting on a bright expression. Give me a second to bag up some leftovers. Entering the lounge moments later, she catches him packing up his torn garments. Just keep what you have on, she offers, gesturing at his outfit. That size suits your frame perfectly. You do not mind? Honestly, I'd be thrilled to never look at those pieces again. The sharp, venomous undertone of her own words catches both of them off guard. As he accepts the paper sack, his skin grazes hers, sending a spark between them. I appreciate this, he murmurs. For your shelter, your care, all of it. I have no idea how to make this right. Please, do not even mention it, she waves off his gratitude. Stop, he counters flatly. A sudden, intense fire burns in his tone. It meant everything. You took in a dangerous unknown when logic screamed at you to lock the door. You offered up your meals, your sanctuary, your very peace of mind. He hesitates, a dark cloud passing over his features. My memories are gone, but I am certain of one thing. I was never a good man. I never would have shown such mercy." A heartbeat later, the door clicks shut, abandoning her to the deafening silence of a hollow room, her gaze fixed entirely upon the vacant cushions where he once rested. Chapter 5. 2 days slip by in a mundane haze, yet every single motion feels fundamentally skewed. She attends career meetings, returns to a devastatingly silent living space, and fights the desperate urge to constantly check the sofa for his phantom presence. It is utterly absurd, she mentally scolds herself. They barely shared 48 hours together. Normal human beings simply do not tether their hearts to random men off the street that fast. Then the tempest strikes. Midday brings a torrential downpour, instantly overwhelming the pitiful urban sewers and transforming concrete avenues into raging waterways. Come dusk, the squall escalates into a sheer cataclysm. Ferocious gales violently shake the glass, hurling massive ice chunks through a blinding deluge that completely erases the neighboring architecture. Nell marches across her flat, chronically refreshing every available meteorological forecast. Her mind remains trapped on Dmitri braving this atmospheric hellscape, equipped with merely the garments he wore earlier. At 10 o'clock, her restraint snaps entirely. Donning a thick parka and snatching a parasol, she plunges straight into the maelstrom. Vicious gusts immediately hurl her backward the second she exits the lobby. The city blocks appear utterly abandoned, save for fleeting ambulances screaming past with blazing lights. Flash floods churn against the curbs, forcing her to grip brick facades simply to avoid getting dragged under. Reaching their initial meeting spot reveals nothing beyond wind-blown trash. Where on earth did he vanish to? Surviving this seems impossible. Freezing and drenched, she nearly surrenders before noticing a shadowed silhouette wedged inside a tight architectural recess. "Dmitri!" she screams, battling the roaring gales for dominance. His gaze snaps upward, raw shock piercing through the torrential curtain. No. A fiercely charged stare bridges the tempestuous void separating them. "You actually stayed," she breathes, pointing toward their original turf. Faint amusement momentarily grazes his lips. Figured I should wait. Waiting for what exactly? For her to hunt him down. Realizing he actively yearned for her return ignites an intense, comforting heat against the freezing deluge. "Let us head to my place," she blurts instinctively. "Please. Surviving out here is absolutely impossible now." But what if another pipeline bursts now? She abruptly cuts off his weak protest. "Suppose I require superhuman senses to rescue the block." Superhuman senses. He visibly battles the urge to grin again. A vicious squall suddenly launches jagged trash violently through the air. His grip catches her bicep, solid yet incredibly tender. "This tempest is escalating," she murmurs. Rest is completely off the table while you endure this freezing nightmare. Water cascades from his midnight strands as he stares intently. "I am a total stranger to you," he mutters. "False," she counters quickly. Yet that simple confession carries an unexpectedly profound weight. "We are actual friends. Please return to my apartment, Dmitri," she whispers, "merely until these skies clear." His eventual silent agreement washes an intoxicating, dizzying wave of sheer comfort over her. Merely until the skies clear, he yields. Chapter 6. Inside her tiny foyer, they remain rooted and completely drenched. "Let me fetch some linens," Nell offers, hyperfixated on the damp fabric molding to his muscular physique. "Please do," he assents. Racing about, she collects fresh garments and cloths, desperately attempting to dismiss her fiercely pounding heart. "Go ahead and swap out of those," she stammers, pointing toward the sleeping quarters. "I will head to bed. You need rest as well. It is incredibly late." "Indeed," he replies, yet remains perfectly statue still beside the temporary mattress. "Okay then." Tension suffocates the cramped lounge as unsaid truths hang heavily between them. Anyway, Nell finally sighs. "Sleep well." She retreats into her sanctuary, though slumber wholly refuses to come. His proximity beyond the drywall proves far too distracting. Each floorboard groan, cushion rustle, and deep exhalation echoes as though he shares her very mattress. 60 agonizing minutes later, she completely surrenders. Tiptoeing without shoes, she leans her head against the wooden frame, listening intently. Absolute quietness. She cracks the barrier and steals a quick glance. Lunar rays flood the lounge. Dmitri perches at the sofa's precipice, arms resting on his thighs, gazing through. The glass panes with a predatory focus, practically tracking unseen prey within the encroaching darkness. Insomnia struck you too? She breathes. He pivots toward the sound, irises flashing brilliantly despite the pitch-black shadows. Hardly, he murmurs. Stepping forward, she grows intensely self-conscious of her sheer slip and utterly exposed skin. The atmosphere chills, making her flesh prickle under the tension. I figured brewing a warm pot might help. Just some chamomile, she murmurs, aiming for nonchalance. Good for the nerves. Good, he echoes, a wicked hint of amusement lacing his words. Swallowing hard, she offers him a cup, grabbing the kettle just as his chair scrapes back. Measured, deliberate paces echo at her back, silent yet commanding, until she spins around to find him looming close. Reflexively retreating until the granite bites her spine, she watches him advance, halting a hair's breadth away. Now, he breathes, his tone a gravelly, intimate fog that makes her nervously moisten her mouth. Bending near, he drags his nose along her pulse point. Keep your drink, he rasps, mouth skimming her neck. Gulping for air, she whispers, You don't? Palms flattening against his pectoral muscles to shove him away, she instead freezes. Her fingers simply bunch up his fabric, dragging him in. Your scent is all storm and fire, he remarks, plus a sugary bass note. She exhales his name, her entire frame vibrating with electricity. Your generosity demands repayment, he murmurs softly. Allow me to return the favor. Their lips collide with the brutal force of the tempest outdoors, starving, uninhibited, and desperately delayed. He claims her mouth with an ancient muscle memory, devouring her as if tasting a forgotten mystery from centuries past. The brewing beverage is utterly abandoned. Chapter 7. Morning rouses her with the quiet chime of pottery and a gently roaring gas burner. Wandering into the cooking area without shoes, her sleep-heated body shifting under a light shift, she spots him stationed by the oven. Glancing over, his golden irises flare under the dawn sun, while a profoundly wicked grin threatens to buckle her legs entirely. Dawn, he grates out, vocal cords still heavy with slumber. Hi, she stammers, unexpectedly timid. Passing her the cup, his skin grazes hers, sending sudden butterflies through her core. A tender, anxious thrill missing since her high school days. Weather cleared up? She notes quietly. Indeed, he agrees, gaze locked onto her face. Hanging around wouldn't hurt. For safety, she stammers out. The news warned about lingering tremors. A pregnant pause stretches out before his lips curve slightly. Tremors, he repeats, closing the gap with a wicked sparkle in his gaze. Got it. Playing it smart? He teases. Highly practical, she shoots back, tilting her head high. Clearly, he concurs, tone gravelly while smoothing a stray curl away from her face. Very. His resulting kiss is languid and heated, carrying notes of roasted beans and a profound, silent promise. Gravity pulls her against his chest purely on instinct. 24 more hours, he breathes into her mouth. Yet tomorrow turns into a fortnight. Their cohabitation seems effortless on the surface, though their charged, high-voltage touches scream otherwise. Each passing glance stretches into dangerous territory. Merely counting my blessings, he purrs later that week, trapping her against the tiling, lips hovering by her ear. You rescued me. Accept my thanks. Some way to say thanks, she gasps out, feeling his digits trace the hem of her trousers. Profound, earth-shattering thankfulness, he vows with utter seriousness, dropping to the floor to thoroughly prove his devotion. They banter constantly over the setup. She dubs him her boy toy, while he claims he pays rent through highly inventive bedroom favors. Yet beneath the playful teasing lies a heavier undercurrent, a raw intensity, evident whenever his pupils dilate with feral possessiveness at guys hitting on her downtown, or that guttural territorial rumble vibrating from his chest as his mouth claims the frantic thumping in her throat. "You never get enough," she cries out one evening, pinned firmly against the upholstery. "Just for you," he pants, tone jagged with desire. "Always you." Furthermore, merely occupying her home isn't enough for him. He tackles household flaws like a military operation. Repairing a loose hinge is child's play. He overhauls her entire pantry for peak culinary performance. "Seriously, this isn't necessary," she points out from atop a stool, clutching a random wrench he'd thrust at her while rewiring the ceiling fan. "Ignoring decay is utterly illogical," he counters flatly. Minor bugs eventually crash the entire system. Before long, his hypercompetence leaks into the hallway. The man actually drafts up complex janitorial timelines, mapping out neighborly chores for the elderly lady downstairs, which everyone somehow obeys without a single conscious agreement. "Quite the puppet master, aren't you?" she remarks at dusk, trailing behind him up the stairwell. "You possess this uncanny ability to bend everyone to your will." Halting so abruptly she almost crashes into his chest, Dmitri tilts his head. "And that bothers you?" he questions, sounding completely fascinated. "Not exactly," she murmurs, hyper-focused on the burning grip he has on her arm. "It is just strange." Much later, limbs intertwined between the sheets, his lips trail along her throat with a feral, starving intensity. His incisors scrape against her pulse point, unnaturally pointed, while a distinct shudder wrecks his ragged exhales. "I really ought to stop," he whispers, right before burying his face against her flesh, marking her with ravenous, dark blossoms. A few days pass until Nell steps away to the restroom during their standard cafe date. Coming back, she catches some blonde draped over their booth, chatting him up with blatant, aggressive desire. Pure, blinding territorial rage strikes her hard enough to freeze her in place. As the stranger giggles and edges closer to Dmitri, her lungs completely seize. Who was she to get territorial over a casual hookup arrangement with her housemate? Yet witnessing this random girl throw herself at him, observing his effortlessly polite deflections, a sudden, terrifying epiphany strikes her. Being a casual fling is no longer enough. She craves his entire soul. The revelation slams into her violently. She has fallen completely for this man. How did this transpire? At what exact second did her enigmatic stray transform into her sole reason for breathing? The sheer gravity of this newly discovered truth leaves her head spinning wildly. Her heart belongs to a stranger whose true identity remains a blank slate. To him, she could just be a warm bed and free rent. "Your mind has been miles away ever since the cafe," he notes during their walk back, inhaling deeply as though physically smelling the anxiety rolling off her. "Just lost in thought. I am okay." He scrutinizes her features intensely before giving a short bob of his head. "How about I make dinner? No pressure." "I insist," he dictates, gently capturing her cheeks within his warm palms. "Allow me to spoil you." A calloused thumb strokes her bottom lip, and an irresistible, invisible pull forces her to melt against him. "All right," she breathes softly. A predatory, knowing smirk stretches across his jaw. "Perfect. Give me 60 minutes. She remains rooted to the spot, grinning like a fool, until a vicious sneer shatters the silence. "Have you no dignity?" Whipping around, Nell faces an older gentleman in tailored clothes, marching over with absolute revulsion contorting his features. Between the bespoke tailoring and arrogant posture, he radiates immense wealth. Yet pure fury radiates from his gaze. "Pardon?" she stammers, thoroughly shocked. "Sleeping with a monster like him," the stranger barks, volume steadily rising. "Do the expensive gifts make it easy to forget the countless families he destroyed?" "My apologies, but you have lost me." "Blake Storm," the guy snarls out. "The head of Storm Incorporated." Her brows knit together in total bewilderment. "Drop the innocent act. I literally just watched you two." "Hold on." She furiously waves her hands. "Do you mean Dmitri?" "Dmitri?" The corporate elite barks a bitter laugh. "As if I could forget the bastard who orchestrated my hostile takeover, stripped my assets, and left the carcass to rot. He put hundreds of innocent employees on the streets. "You must be mistaken," she argues desperately. He isn't some executive. He lives on the streets and lost his memories. Memory loss? A cruel chuckle escapes him. The guy is a multi-millionaire. This is likely a massive con. Dodging the IRS, burying funds, God knows. Flashes of his brutal injuries and the absolute squalor she found him in flood her mind. More importantly, she recalls the genuine, devastating emptiness in his gaze whenever he struggled to grasp his identity. "That is impossible," she fires back, though icy paranoia begins wrapping around her chest. "I need to leave," she breathes out. "Listen, girl," the stranger sighs, his wrath melting into tragic sympathy. Perhaps. Chapter 8. Huddled over an oak desk at the local archives, Nell is buried under mountains of vintage periodicals. For 2 solid hours, she has meticulously scoured archived prints of the Wall Street Journal, Fortune, and Businessweek. Query after query for Blake Storm yields the exact, devastating reality. His face dominates Forbes' 40 Under 40, and a Times feature on America's wealthiest young tycoons, making her deeply nauseous. Dmitri, clad in an impeccably tailored suit, dominating a towering Manhattan skyscraper, surrounded by glossy shots of a massive Hamptons compound, an opulent penthouse, and an armada of high-end vehicles. She gazes at the glossy spreads, shrinking inward as a profound sense of inadequacy washes over her. This billionaire exists in a universe completely alienated from her tiny flat, making them practically 2 entirely distinct kinds of creatures. The piece details his cutthroat corporate instincts and vicious corporate takeover tactics. His empire operates out of New York, a sprawling 3,000 miles away from her Seattle life. Purchasing the issue, she wanders back in a daze, only to find him cooking in her oversized sweatpants, looking completely at home. It absolutely destroys her to watch him padding around her tiny space, pretending this domestic illusion holds any actual weight. She hurls the glossy publication directly at his chest. The booklet smacks him before dropping to the tiles, falling open right to his commanding portrait. An oppressive quiet instantly fills the room. He glances down at the print, and she catches the precise second a spark of familiarity ignites in his gaze. "Was everything just a massive lie?" She breathes out, barely audible. "Are you just messing with my head?" "Absolutely not," he denies instantly. "Listen, Blake Storm," she cuts him off, quoting the headline. "Worth $2.8 billion. The head of Storm Industries. That is who you actually are, right?" He stands there, speechless, jaw working soundlessly. "None of those things ring a bell," he finally manages to breathe out. "Some guy approached me this afternoon," she pushes on. "He recognized your face, claimed you ruined his entire livelihood." "That cannot be." He tears his eyes away from the floor. "I could never do such a thing." "Just look at the evidence," she points at the glossy sheets. "The mansion, the skyscraper. You could purchase this whole complex using spare change." The sheer extravagance bleeding from those pictures feels like a cruel taunt. Her mind flashes to her morning appearance, exhausted features and cheap thrifted garments. "I possess zero memories of being that guy," he pleads, sounding utterly frantic. "That changes absolutely nothing," she replies, pivoting around because staring at his familiar features brings entirely too much agony. A crushing sense of loss washes over her. He is already vanishing back into a gilded reality she could never possibly enter. "Since your identity is no longer a mystery, you need to head back," she mutters softly. "You cannot possibly intend to keep crashing on my couch after this, right?" Turning the pages to reveal his coastal compound, she gestures wildly. "Just look. You belong in a literal palace right now. Please be reasonable." His tone grows tight and panicked. "There is zero solid proof that is actually my face. It might just be an uncanny resemblance." Shaking her head, she pushes past him toward the stove. "Fine. Let us just eat our cheap meal then. But hold on. Why stomach my cooking when a private jet could drop you at an elite 5-star bistro before midnight?" "The title Blake holds absolutely zero significance for me," he bites back. "Well, that stranger claimed you were completely faking it." She presses on. Said you were likely dodging taxes or stashing illegal funds. And you instantly took his word? His voice fractures. You trusted a random guy on the sidewalk over me? The raw hurt in his tone tempts her to swallow her accusations, beg forgiveness, and bury the discovery entirely. However, she simply cannot do it. Those glossy pages sit there as undeniable evidence of a billionaire existence so entirely out of her league, it feels like pure fiction. I do not think you faked the memory loss, she replies, sounding absolutely shattered. But honestly, that changes absolutely nothing. Whatever this was, she gestures vaguely in the space separating them. It has to end right now. Why, exactly? He demands softly. Because why would we? Why would someone like you ever settle for my life? She waves at the cramped walls around them. When you own all of that? Raising the billionaire spread again, her vision swims with unshed tears. Because none of those mansions have you inside them, he breathes out, jabbing a finger at the glossy paper. You exist right here. They lock eyes across the cramped linoleum, drowning beneath the crushing pressure of everything they have left unsaid. Every agonizing tick of the clock fractures another piece of her soul. Listen, you really need to leave, she eventually forces out. Phone your corporation. Get help. I refuse. Well, I need you gone. This is my place. Suddenly, his irises ignite with a distinctly inhuman, metallic, golden flare. Are you genuinely kicking me out? He demands. She remains utterly silent, terrified that opening her mouth will ruin everything. Afraid she will end up pleading for him to remain instead. No. A deep, unfamiliar harshness laced his tone. It sounded dangerously close to an animalistic snarl. I do, she breathed, the confession ripping her heart to shreds. Get out of here. Dmitri appeared ready to protest, his entire frame rigid, before a sudden agony twisted his features. He staggered forward, clutching his sternum as if a monster were tearing free. What is it? Nell demanded, sudden dread drowning out her fury. Instead of answering, a choked, agonizing groan escaped his lips. He gasped for air, perspiration slicking his brow in the chilly night. Dmitri. Blind panic swallowed her lingering rage. Talk to me! He collapsed into a squat, shuddering violently. His knuckles were bone white. Dmitri. She breathed his name, pure horror hijacking her senses. A guttural roar ripped from him, followed by the sickening snap of elongating bones. Coarse, black hair erupted over his flesh, shredding his garments to ribbons. Fingernails morphed into talons, and sharp incisors descended. His vertebrae bowed outward until a gargantuan beast with radiant golden irises crouched exactly where the man once stood. A reflexive shriek tore from Nell's lungs. The beast, Dmitri, met her gaze, devastating sorrow swirling in his all-too-human stare, before spinning around and lunging at the glass pane, exploding outward as he vanished into the darkness. Chapter 9. Paralyzed amidst the ruined living room, Nell stared blankly at the destroyed casing, taking in the scattered debris and shredded clothing. The ensuing quiet felt absolutely oppressive. Initially, her sweet, cryptic companion turned out to be a cutthroat mogul, and tonight he morphed into an animal before her very eyes. I have officially gone insane, she muttered, frantically raking fingers across her scalp. Totally unhinged. The image of his bewildered, anguished expression during the transformation flashed back, followed by the crushing despair in the beastly gaze. The memory looped relentlessly. That gentle whimper responding to her terror, and how he cringed as if her panic inflicted actual wounds. He is out there by himself, she realized. That realization was a physical blow. The terrified, disoriented Dmitri Blake was out there because she banished him. Remorse crushed her chest. Inhaling sharply, she snatched her coat. Locating him was imperative. They needed to talk. Things could not end this way, especially since she had completely fallen for him, not after seeing that wounded stare. Outside, the dusk felt unnervingly silent. She rushed back to the spot of their first encounter, scrutinizing the gloom. Dmitri, she murmured, keeping her volume low but praying the beast possessed sharp ears. "Please, Dmitri." Mid-stride down the pavement, brutal fingers snatched her from the rear. "Hey!" A shriek bubbled up before a callous palm crushed against her lips. Dragged forcefully into an alleyway, her pulse hammered while she thrashed, gnawing at flesh and kicking her legs. Yet she was outmatched by the sheer strength of multiple male attackers. "Morrison," a voice grunted nearby. "Is this the girl?" Despite her terror, she spotted the very guy who recognized Dmitri previously. "Yeah," he confirmed, shooting her an almost sympathetic glance. An assailant thrust a stack of bills toward Morrison. "Here is your promised cut." Horror filled Nell's gaze. She fought viciously, attempting to yell right as a rag smothered her face. Nauseating fumes assaulted her nostrils. "Relax," Morrison muttered, his words blurring while the sedative kicked in. "You are safe. They merely require a lure for Blake." Chapter 10. Regaining consciousness, Nell felt a splitting migraine and harsh toxins lingering on her tongue. Plastic restraints bound her to a steel seat inside a derelict factory, reeking of decay and oxidation. Sickly sodium illumination pierced the upper shattered panes. A trio of thugs prowled around her, massive, brawny, and unsettlingly poised. Their fluid grace instantly mirrored Dmitri. "Our guest is up," a goon announced. "Excellent." A second guy squatted down. Time for the Alpha to arrive. Their boss unsheathed a blade, grazing his digit against the steel. Regardless, her part is finished. Morrison wanted Blake to endure absolute hell, right? Dread suffocated her as the weapon crept nearer. "Relax, darling. This won't take long at all." A sudden snarl echoes. Deep, feral, and utterly monstrous. The rumble rattles the concrete, chilling her to the bone. Every thug stops dead. "You promised me his changing days were over." "Keep quiet and brace yourselves," another mutters. A gigantic beast emerges from the darkness into the glow. He looks larger now, boasting a coat like midnight fog. Golden irises fixate entirely upon the blade at her neck. My, the boss mocks, keeping the weapon steady. "See what just dragged itself from the trash?" As the creature advances, the gang closes in around their hostage. "You know the rules here, right? Inch closer, and her life ends." Halting instantly, Dmitri stares down the weapon. 3 shape changers against a single mortal captive. "Listen closely. Change to your human form, nice and easy. Then, we negotiate revenge." Nell notices the sheer strain tightening his muscles, fury battling self-control. "Dmitri, stay back." Her captor slaps her across the face, jolting her violently. "Quiet!" Dmitri finally loses control, launching himself forward. Instead of the boss, he targets the lackey on the left, using the shock factor perfectly. Fangs sink into flesh. Crimson splatters. Absolute pandemonium breaks loose. The head thug spins around, ignoring his weapon for a heartbeat. That brief moment is all he needs. Dropping the first thug, Dmitri swerves directly toward Nell. Number 3 attempts a transformation, yet Dmitri plows right over him effortlessly, completely fixated on his mate. Before the boss can raise his dagger, Dmitri tackles him hard. Both smash through wooden boxes as the weapon skitters across the floor. The trio transforms completely, skeletons popping and limbs elongating, yet they remain outsized. Dmitri battles them like a demon, untamed but deadly accurate. The pack attacks together, biting viciously at his hindquarters in a desperate bid to topple him. Crimson stains the concrete. A little from him, mostly from his foes. Eventually, the defeated wolves stagger and collapse one after another. Just the head honcho is left standing. Growling, he retreats toward the glass and disappears into the night. Dmitri teeters unsteadily, his coat clotted with gore. After a single stride in Nell's direction, he hits the ground. "Dmitri!" Tearing away her broken bindings, Nell plummets to the floor beside him. The beast's silhouette morphs rapidly. Seconds pass before a bare, wounded man rests motionless and ashen on the cement. "Dmitri," she murmurs, gently supporting his face while her fingers futilely attempt to staunch his deepest gashes. Open your eyes. His lids flutter weakly, revealing a foggy, bewildered gaze aimed directly at her. Nell, what went wrong? I just felt furious, and then… You seriously had no clue? She questions, completely shocked by his ignorance of the beast. You truly had no idea at all. He lets out a painful grunt, attempting to rise before tumbling backward. Those guys recognized who I am. They mentioned, you're losing way too much blood. Nell cuts in abruptly. I have to find a doctor. Now, he breathes out, weakly grabbing her fingers. Suppose they were telling the truth. What if I'm actually some freak? Stop it, she argues passionately. The guy I fell for is gentle and decent. You literally put your life on the line for mine. Her tone splinters with emotion. I'm in love with you, Dimitri. No matter your past or your real identity. Surprise flashes across his features at those words, yet before he can utter a sound, he loses consciousness, sagging heavily against her chest. Someone! Nell shrieks into the cavernous, abandoned building. Please, we need a medic! Suddenly, the purr of high-end engines echoes outdoors, succeeded by rushing boots. Found him! An unfamiliar man shouts. A trio wearing custom outfits storms into the facility, navigating with the exact same lethal fluidity as their previous assailants. However, this new group assesses the area with tactical precision, instantly fixing their sharp gazes right on Nell. The most imposing of the bunch, a frosty-eyed guy with striking white hair, sprints over, swiftly crouching next to the couple. Blake, are you listening? You have to save us. Nell pleads desperately. He's hemorrhaging badly. We must get him medical attention right now. Medical attention? The sleek, fair-haired female of the trio scoffs at her in disgust. Why bother? Are you crazy? What do you mean, why? Nell fires back. The guy is fading fast. Our leader requires no mortal infirmary. The final arrival, a youthful guy clutching a sleek satchel and wearing thin spectacles, waves her off with blatant arrogance. Nell frantically stretches out to grab Dimitri while screaming for him, yet the white-haired stranger firmly pushes her out of the way. Actually, the guy holding the bag adds coolly, perhaps we should speed up his recovery. Having him attend the executive gathering this evening would be highly efficient. Our investors are growing impatient. You guys are totally insane, Nell mumbles under her breath. Out of nowhere, the female stranger whips a needle from her coat, jamming it straight into his heart. Nell cries out in protest, yet Dimitri takes a sharp, ragged breath and bolts upright, his gaze instantly piercing and completely lucid. Like clockwork, the trio of arrivals bow their heads in flawless unison. Alpha, they chorus. Welcome back, adds the suited man, already retrieving a stack of paperwork from his satchel. I just need you to sign off on this corporate buyout right away, for heaven's sake. Are you out of your mind? Nell shouts. He is hurt. Give him some space. Yet Dimitri merely flutters his lashes, scans the page, and transforms instantly. What on earth, Malcolm? He growls fiercely, tearing the pages into confetti. This deal is pure garbage. Have you forgotten my warnings regarding the Ford Syndicate? You have to keep them entirely cornered, or they will take you for everything you have. Fighting off obvious tears of gratitude, Malcolm replies, Heavens above, we are so glad you have returned, Alpha. Everything fell apart while you were gone. Dimitri's voice drips with ice as he snaps back. You are utterly useless, Malcolm. But boss, where on earth did you vanish to? We spent months scouring the city for you. That does not concern you, Dimitri interrupts with razor-sharp chill. Are you not paid to anticipate these disasters rather than interrogating me after the fact? Giving a slight, refined sniff, the female asks, Boss, since those three are handled, what is our next move? Should we strike back? We ought to make a bloody example to prove our point. The white-haired fellow nods in agreement. Let every other faction see the consequences of crossing our territory. Nell watches the scene unfold as if viewing a foreign film. The ruthless, tactical leader barking commands bears no resemblance to her companion. What happened to the sweet man who shared bedtime stories with her? And how do we handle the mortal girl? The female questions abruptly, gesturing toward Nell. Dimitri's piercing eyes lock onto hers, and a fleeting hint of emotion crosses his hardened features. "Just take her back to her apartment," he orders without inflection. "Ensure she inks the non-disclosure agreements." "Hold on." Nell attempts to grab his arm, yet rough hands haul her upright before she can make contact. Dragged toward an idling vehicle, she casts one final, heartbroken glance over her shoulder. Her tender, vulnerable love, the guy who brewed her morning espresso and fretted over Mr. Hoffman, had effectively vanished into thin air. Epilogue. 2 weeks have dragged by like 2 agonizing years. Gazing into the washroom glass, Nell sees an absolute stranger. Shadowed eyes, lifeless strands, and a noticeably heavier frame. Her entire apartment complex has been shoving food at her ever since his departure. Mr. Ke even showed up with baked goods, lingering uncomfortably in the hall. "It breaks my heart not seeing the two of you walking together," Mrs. Chen had whispered affectionately. "He was such a wonderful gentleman." Nell forced down the thick sorrow, blocking her airway. How could she explain grieving a phantom? He vanished completely silently. Her only goodbye was a squad of attorneys the following dawn, brandishing endless legal gag orders. "Autograph this line and that one. Put your initials on this page." A hefty hush money wire transfer hit her bank balance soon after. Practical, sure, but it left her feeling entirely dirty and utterly forgotten. Absolute radio silence from him. The single bright spot remaining was her career. Because Blake completely revamped her credentials, she secured a role at a top-tier advertising agency. Yet victories feel incredibly empty without a partner to celebrate with. Her routine melts into a haze of conferences and inbox messages. This evening, strolling back from another exhausting shift of faked enthusiasm, the heavens tear open. Water cascades down in punishing waves, mirroring the exact storm that originally crossed their paths. Operating on pure instinct, she wanders away from her apartment complex, drawn directly to that specific side street. It appears tighter and grubbier than in her memories. Merely a cramped brick corridor, completely mundane, save for how it rewrote her destiny. She halts directly over the concrete where she first discovered him. The downpour completely saturates her coat. Was there any way to guess the helpless, broken guy huddled there was actually an immortal apex predator and business tycoon? Still, right from that very first moment, she sensed an undeniable magnetic tether. Meanwhile, she remains just painfully, terribly average Nell, the completely normal girl who stumbled into a magical crossfire and got her soul utterly shattered. Abruptly, the freezing deluge stops striking her skin, even as the storm rages loudly against the pavement. She flutters her wet lashes in bewilderment. A dark canopy shields her from the sky. She pivots at a glacial pace, terrified of either facing reality or confronting an illusion. Yet there he stands, gripping a sleek parasol that covers them entirely. His dark locks are trimmed and immaculately coiffed. Lacking any stubble and wearing a slate designer suit worth double her lease, he looks pristine. However, his striking, gold-flecked, wolfish gaze hasn't changed one bit. "You never left," he murmurs gently, that deep tone sending a nostalgic ache straight through her chest. A tense shrug lifts her shoulders. "Sure, just a precaution," she whispers. A spark of optimism lights his features, yet she forces her walls back up, shutting out the emotion and him. Their previous encounter had ended with him turning his back on her, vanishing without looking behind. "Right," she forces out. "Your memories are fully restored?" He pauses. "They are," he confesses after a tense second. Flashing a strained grin, she replies, "Great. Must be handy for closing whatever massive corporate deals your partners demand." His nervous smile completely tightens. "Yeah, I guess," he replies. Heavy raindrops batter their umbrella, forming an isolated bubble around them. His gaze studies her features intently. "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, going this long without an abduction is nice," she shoots back. He visibly winces. "Listen, I am profoundly remorseful about that entire evening. My actions directly caused your severe injuries. Had I known..." Want to know what stung worse than getting snatched by those thugs? She cuts him off. The reality that you vanished completely right after. Not a single text or farewell. Anguish crosses his expression. My apologies, he repeats. His sheer sincerity makes the sting even sharper. Waking up with my mind fully restored left me rattled. Honestly, I panicked. Why was my mind wiped blank? Who orchestrated the entire thing? He drags his fingers through his thick locks. Friends are rare for me now, unlike rivals. I could not even guarantee the loyalty of my own kind. Figuring out the entire situation was mandatory before crossing paths with you again. Plus, He stops short, fingertips hovering near her cheek before retreating. My only goal was to keep you away from the chaos, terrified that any hint of my affection would turn you into collateral damage against my empire. His genuine tone tugs at her heartstrings, yet the lingering scars make lowering her defenses incredibly difficult. A simple phone call would have sufficed, she exhales. And risk wiretaps? Catching her shock, he elaborates. Yeah, recovering my past made me insanely hyper-vigilant. Par for the course when holding the alpha position. Alpha position. She gives a slow headshake. So your mind returns and suddenly you recall being a ruthless executive? My identity is complicated, he interjects, his gaze turning pitch black. And barely any of it leans toward good. Every dark rumor you caught wind of that evening is factual. Instinctively, her hand bridges the gap. The warmth of her touch eases his tension, though the gesture clearly catches him off guard. That lifestyle earned me the hex, he clarifies. Hexed? To erase your mind? Nell questions, blinking. Wait, actual spell work? As he gives a firm nod, she mutters, Sorcery actually exists. The corner of his mouth twitches with faint humor. How else would I shift into a beast? Right, concerning that whole situation, she pauses. Is transforming a frequent hobby of yours? The humor vanishes from his face. Indeed, he measures his tone. I possess the beast blood. Human on the outside, yet deeply tethered to the wild. Memories flood her mind, connecting the strange dots. His impossible tracking abilities. The low, vibrating rumbles in his chest whenever his temper flared up. Okay, she drags the word out. That honestly makes total sense. His intense stare tracks her closely. Are you freaked out? Nell lets out a sharp laugh. Is this why you tracked me down? Terrified I'll leak your supernatural status? Absolutely not, Dmitri counters instantly. Your silence is guaranteed because I completely trust you. Then why the anxiety? Pulling in a heavy breath, he locks eyes with her. You must grasp the harsh reality. My soul is stained now, which is the exact reason the dark spell was cast on me, he rushes on, blocking her out. My former fiancée, a woman I solely proposed to as leverage for a massive corporate merger, ruthlessly unleashed the hex the second I shattered our false engagement. She orchestrated my brutal abduction, tossing my unconscious body into this concrete jungle to ensure total obscurity. Nell grimaces, prompting him to halt his story. My bad, she apologizes. Just mentally weighing if you actually had that karma coming. A startled chuckle slips past his lips. It was likely earned, he concedes. Once my mind cleared, I investigated the depths of Sheila's retaliation. Her enchantment contained a single fatal loophole. It would shatter only through encountering pure, unadulterated affection. Stripped of my wealth, authority, and status, she firmly believed genuine devotion was impossible for me, condemning me to an eternity of amnesia. A sudden flush burns across Nell's face. Oh, back when I collapsed in that grimy alleyway and you rescued me, you claimed, I recall my exact words. She cuts him off, releasing a weary exhale. Her harshness visibly deflates him, his posture slumping in defeat. Understood, he murmurs with caution. A pregnant pause stretches before he murmurs, Moving forward, is there any universe where your heart might accept me, knowing my true nature? He gestures downward. This? Now echoes back. Every monstrous trait I possessed remains, he insists, the syllables spilling out in a rush. My empire is still brutally ruthless. My choices still leave collateral damage. I still run with a completely merciless crowd. The difference now is having the memories of who I became around you. Honestly, I vastly preferred that version of myself. Heat creeps up her cheeks as she lets out a cynical scoff. And? Am I your new ethical guide? Absolutely not now. His tone lowers to a gravelly murmur. I just want your heart again. Losing you was agony, and my old life feels completely hollow. It means nothing after experiencing the kind of fierce devotion you gave me. Meaning broke and spectacularly ordinary? She deflects with a fragile laugh. I mean fiercely giving, he murmurs, gently sweeping wet strands from her forehead. Courageous and deeply good. A rough thumb softly strokes her jawline, and completely breathtaking. Hot moisture threatens to spill over her lashes, forcing her to rapidly blink it away. Listen to me, she breathes, her words trembling slightly. We fell into this when your true identity was buried. Your mind is fully restored today. Give it time, and you will crave your extravagant reality again. That glittering lifestyle means absolutely zero, he cuts in sharply, because you are not in it. Then his mouth crashes against hers in a frantic, scorching collision of familiar heat. He devours her the way a suffocating man gulps oxygen, like a weary traveler finally reaching his sanctuary. I am completely devoted to you, he breathes out. That dark magic only shattered because you cared for a broken man with zero to his name. My power is back, yet you remain my absolute only desire. Staring up, she sees the duality in his eyes. He remains the stray she rescued from the gutters, yet embodies the terrifyingly majestic alpha standing tall today. Please let me prove it, he begs in a hushed tone. Just give us one final shot. Ignoring logic, pushing past 14 days of sheer heartbreak, and tossing away every terrifying consequence of being his mate, she stretches upward to capture his mouth once more. The torrential downpour violently soaks them, yet both remain completely oblivious. Trapped inside the exact gritty side street where their paths first crossed, humanity fades away. Just an ordinary mortal saving a beast, and a predator discovering his soul. Huge thanks to all of you tuning in. Dropping your thoughts below massively boosts the channel. If this supernatural romance hooked you, definitely shout out your absolute favorite scene down in the discussion area. The absolute best reply wins a complimentary 30 days inside my Creator Club, unlocking hidden chapters and top secret romantic lore. Truly hoping to connect with you guys over there.